U.S. Trade Representative Jamieson Greer said the U.S. could push China's deadline for a trade deal past the August 12th deadline following the administration's very positive conversations with China. If a deal is not reached, tariffs on China could snap back up to above 80%. Here is what Greer told Maria on Friday about the U.S. wanting healthy trade with China.
Tariffs on China right now, all in, are about 55%, which, you know, for us is a good deal, right? They've been a very challenging actor on trade for a long time. You know, we're going to trade with China. We want to have a good, healthy trade relationship with China, but there are certainly problems we have to correct for. You know, in the future, if we have some other kind of deal or modification with China, obviously, you know, we'd want to talk to the president and make sure he agrees with that. But I would envision something that is much more balanced, much more open to the U.S. and protects our industries here at home. I think you can find a spot where you can have all of those things. Obviously, the Chinese have to agree to that and be part of that. You know, maybe they want to, maybe they don't. But, you know, President Xi and President Trump, they have a good relationship. You know, we are trying to actively have something that's good for American workers and American businesses. But it certainly takes two to, you know, agree to that kind of setup.
Joining me now, Gatestone Institute Senior Fellow Gordon Chang. Gordon, good morning, and so great to have you on set. A lot to talk about with you this morning. First, we might be pushing the August 12th deadline. Your reaction?
We shouldn't be doing that. You know, we just heard from the Wall Street Journal that China is not allowing the export of rare earths to U.S. defense contractors. That's a violation of China's May 12th agreement with us when they agreed to reverse the April 2nd retaliatory measures. So China's violating its deal with us. So the question is, why are we talking to China about this? Why don't we just impose those 600% tariffs or something, which we should? And also, we shouldn't be selling the H20 NVIDIA chip to China, because that was part of the quid pro quo. They sell us rare earths, we give them the H20. They're not giving us the rare earths, so why are we giving them the NVIDIA chip?
Yeah, we've had 3 rounds of talks now with the Chinese. This is Scott Bessent, of course, and Jamieson Greer. And the fact that Jamieson Greer made a comment about, well, we're about 50% halfway done, means that this is a very slow conversation with the Chinese. By the way, let's pull this up. This is the exclusive reporting from the Wall Street Journal this morning. China is choking supply of critical minerals to Western defense companies. Article says that Beijing's tightened controls are a sign of the leverage it has over the U.S. military supply chain. The Journal writes this: China has maintained a lock on critical minerals for defense purposes. China supplies around 90% of the world's rare earths and dominates the production of many other critical minerals. As a result, one drone parts manufacturer that supplies the U.S. military forced to delay orders by up to 2 months while it searched for a non-Chinese source of magnets, which are assembled from rare earths. Gordon, this is something Maria has talked about extensively on this program.
Yeah, so the issue here is that we should have been stockpiling these rare earths for a long time. But the point is, look, yes, the Chinese have leverage on rare earths, but we have leverage on Boeing parts. We could ground the Chinese fleet by just saying, look, Boeing, you can't sell spare parts, you can't provide services. Also, we've got so many other points of leverage over China. They right now are more export dependent than they've ever been. They need the U.S. market. We could just say, look, China, you're not selling anything to the U.S. anymore. So, look, yes, they play rough, but we've got to play rough, too. Otherwise, they're just going to run all over us.
It's interesting you say that. Mitch, jump in.
Gordon, one of the sort of hallmarks of these Trump trade deals are, you know, some sort of a tariff relief, and then the other country invests in the United States some dollar amount. At the same time, China, every time they invest in the United States, it becomes an issue. They're buying farms, they're buying things that we don't want them to own. What do you think is going to happen in a trade deal? Will there be that quid pro quo on investment in the United States when that's such a political issue here?
You mean with regard to China?
With regard to China, yeah.
You know, Trump wants everyone to invest in the U.S., but I don't want the Chinese to invest here. You know, and it's not just a question of them using farmland for some pretty malicious purposes, including bringing in all of these agro-terrorism substances. But the point is, we don't want them in the battery companies. We don't want them anywhere, because every time they bring in a Chinese company, they bring in Chinese agents and operatives, and this becomes an issue of national security for us. So, you know, I don't want Chinese investment in this country. There's much too much of it. We need to get rid of what we have, not bring in more.
How long do you think it would take for pharmaceutical component production to move out of China? I mean, that relationship during the pandemic was exposed, and it was to most Americans who were not aware that their blood pressure and statins, those medications were coming from China.
Yeah, China makes what, about 85 to 90% of pharmaceuticals and active pharmaceutical ingredients. Those I think we could shift probably faster than the rare earths because there's a lot of other complications with regard to rare earths that don't apply to drugs and pharmaceuticals. But the point is we need to do this right now. Trump tried to do this at the end of his first term. Now, the execution was flawed, but clearly the strategy was right. And this should be like number one, number two priority for the U.S. right now is to make sure we get those pharmaceuticals back in our country because we just do not want more trade friction with China over drugs.
Well, the pandemic hit, which just upended everything. So I want to ask you about kind of the global story here, national security, because China is now deploying a submarine for the first time to Russia. They're doing these joint naval exercises. They're looking to, quote, reinforce their partnership. I wonder how concerned you are about that. It's a submarine rescue, joint anti-submarine air defense and anti-missile operation, along with maritime combat, according to the Chinese Defense Ministry. But President Trump confirmed nuclear submarines are in the region of Russia 2 days after he said the U.S. was positioning 2 nuclear submarines there. So kind of talk about that apex there, United States, Russia, China. Yeah, possible sanctions on Russia.
Well, possible sanctions on Russia really means secondary sanctions on those who buy Russian energy. That's Turkey, India, and China. And so, yeah, Trump is threatening sanctions on India for buying Russian oil, but he should be doing that with regard to the Chinese. And by the way, the Chinese take more than 90% of Iran's exports of crude oil. So China is the villain here, and we need to go after the Chinese. Otherwise, if we don't do that, the Chinese are going to look at us and say, oh, those Americans, they don't want to impose costs on us. They're afraid of us. And that's what the thinking in Beijing right now is. So if Trump wants to change that, and he absolutely has to, then he's got to start imposing some costs on the Chinese for doing all of these things that we have not wanted them to do for decades.
Buying Russian oil, buying Iranian oil, which they've been doing as well. So
supporting
black market. Yeah.
Supporting the war in Ukraine, the insurgencies in North Africa, Iran's attack on Israel, Pakistan on India. It just goes on and on and on.
Yeah. And their incursions into Africa, which we've talked about a few times now. Gordon Chang, it's always great to see you. Thank you for being on set with us today.
Thank you, Cheryl.